right, you lucky listeners, we got something special for you today. We got my girl Kendall Jones in here. She's the finance guru, the finance coach. And Kendall, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, and thanks for having me on. Of course, I'm Kendall Jones. I'm a personal finance coach. I also work with businesses on their finances as well.
Okay.
And I've been in personal finance for over 20 years, and I've had my firm for 5 years. So we work with people hand in hand, teaching them more advanced financial strategies, especially for marginalized communities.
Okay, I love it. I love it. I love it. So here we are, you lucky listeners, once again. Another episode of Not Your Common Conversation. I'm here with my co-host, Omar Henderson.
Hi.
And I'm Chris Downing. So let's get into it. Tell us what that world is like.
The world of personal finance?
Yeah.
Oh, well, whenever you talk to someone who's been doing what they do for a while and they have a lot of experience, they have criticisms, of course, of their industries. In the personal finance world, there's a couple of things. One is the personal finance space is very segmented, is what I would say.
What do you mean segmented?
So there's not many people like me who have a comprehensive approach to money or your personal finances. So if you want a home loan, you go to your mortgage broker for the home loan. Yeah. If you want to work on your taxes, you go to a tax person, right? But you don't have someone who's looking at the full picture.
Consolidation.
Yes, and as a result, oftentimes you will get advice from the tax person that might be contradictory to what you need to qualify for investment properties or so on and so forth.
Or a mortgage, right.
Yeah, so the personal finance, I would just like to say first and foremost, the more you know about money, the more fun it becomes. So the personal finance space is everybody's doing their own thing, they're siloed. But what I do is comprehensive, so I get to look at the whole picture. And as a result of it being siloed, it could be a little complicated.
Yeah.
To answer your question about what it's like in the space.
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so what I'm hearing you saying, you said something about the more you know about money, the more fun it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to rephrase what you said and say that you kind of leave your clients being empowered.
That's the goal every time. So what I do is I empower you by educating you, re-educating you, teaching you more advanced financial strategies, but also teaching you how to be an expert in your personal finances. Like, you don't need to be like me where I understand all these things and it's my career, but you should be an expert in your finances. So as a result, people are empowered to go on their own to have different kind of financial conversations with their financial experts in their space.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the point. I don't want anybody codependent on me. I want to give them what they need so that they can go and do it on their own.
So let's back up for a second. I just want to know a little bit of background. We go, Omar and I, we go right into it. But tell us, how did you even get into this? What prompted you to even take on this whole business endeavor?
The business itself or personal finance? Because
both.
Yeah.
Both. I've always been into money. I've always been into it.
Like when you were a kid and
yes.
and grade school, you were a money person.
I was a money person
People
from
go to you
the
for a loan or something.
Of my favorite toy. My mom loves to tell this story now, but my favorite toy was the cash register, not the baby dolls.
I love it.
And my parents really encouraged entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So that was another piece. So I had my first business when I was in high school and an LLC and all of that.
Wow.
And so it was just very encouraged. And then when I was 18, I saw something that I'd never seen before. I grew up in a very nice neighborhood.
Okay.
Everyone on our streets, professionals like scientists and doctors and attorneys.
What were you, if you don't mind me asking, your parents, what were their professions?
Yeah, my mom is an expert in institutional racism, and she has a background as a plant scientist. So she does a lot of work in both fields, but especially institutional racism.
Really?
Yes. And my dad's a marine biologist.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's a marine biologist. He's the founder of one of the oldest scuba diving clubs in the world, and he's an underwater archaeologist.
See, that's cool. That's cool. Because you don't, and I love the fact that, oftentimes you don't, I hate to say this, you don't think about black folks being in those positions, but it's really nice to hear that. It's nice to hear that.
Yeah, they are really big in their fields and thought leaders and
Wow.
Okay.
We may have to invite your parents.
I know, right?
Yeah, sure.
Especially with your mom with institutional racism. I mean, that's a hot topic.
Yeah, that's a big hot topic.
Yeah.
So go on. You cash register.
Yeah.
You say in your
I
neighborhood.
saw something triggering when I was 18. So in our neighborhood, like I was saying, everyone, they had these big professions, and then a neighbor of ours was kicked out of her house, and it was the first time I'd ever seen that. And so I go to my father and I'm like, Dad, what happened here? Like I'm
puzzled,
berating him with questions, to be honest. And he's like, I can't really answer all these questions, but you should go talk to this person. And I went and talked to a financial advisor at 18.
Wow.
And so that started me on the quest.
Wait. So you went to talk to a financial advisor, seeing this happen to this person, and said, hey, I need to look into this. How does this happen? Someone loses their house.
Yep.
Which is devastating.
Yep. And that financial advisor he was like, well, without looking at her numbers, I can't tell you, but this is what typically happens. And the more I found out, that is what happened to her. But it started me on a quest, and from 18, I just kept looking for positions in personal finance. So I worked in accounting offices, but then also I was the youngest person in the city court mortgage and loan division in this area. I was only 19, and I took all the courses, and it just had a ripple effect. You just keep going, and every career was the one that was interesting was the one that had to do with personal finance. So I've worked in mortgage. I've worked with people doing their final estates, when someone passes away.
Right.
I've worked in tax and revenue. I've worked in a lot of different spaces.
Now, did you go to school for this? Or
there is no schooling for personal finance.
So, got it. And so you just took this on yourself. I need to figure this out. And so from talking to the financial advisor, what came out of that at 18?
Yeah, for me personally, it was I'm going to learn everything I need to know when it comes to wealth development, any kind of mitigation stuff around finance. And I just became obsessive about it from that point on. But most people in finance, my finances were kind of the stereotype of what we see, where a lot of student loans and a lot of all of that.
Sure.
And then trying to remember the date, but maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I was trying to buy some more investment properties, and the job I worked at changed their structure of pay.
Right.
So we were commission and salary based, and they took away our salary.
Wow.
So most of us, what we do is we just achieve harder, right? So that's what I did. I worked harder, and I ended up with a stress-induced illness.
Sure.
And so I was young, very healthy, but then had a stress-induced illness.
Right.
And then that really turned it on for me, because that's when I was we're trying to do all these advanced financial strategies, but we don't have all the structures in place because there's no one teaching us that.
Right.
And that's when I changed everything. And that's how the business started to be born out of that, because I changed it for myself. I paid off over $71,000 in debt in 3 years, and did all kinds of things, built all these investment portfolios and stuff. And so now I'm semi-retired. I'm 39.
Wow. You're how old?
39.
Okay. Congratulations on that.
Congrats.
So it's interesting because you talked about a stress-induced illness. So there was a way, and this is my hot topic anyway, this is my thing. There was a way you were being before, and then there was a way you were being after. And the reason why I bring that up is because later on I'm going to ask you, when you have most of your clients, how are they being about their money? Which, in other words, I'm asking, what is their view and or relationship to money? All right, so we're going to get to that, but I want to find out, like I said, up to being stressed, you were being a particular way, and then afterwards, that shifted? Can you say more? Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, so one of the things I teach my clients, of course, I didn't have the terminology until I'm working with hundreds of people, right? But patience, persistence, and planning. So before, like a lot of us, we can run, we're fast. We're just running towards whatever the financial goal is, but we don't really have the right type of plan in place in order to put the right safety nets in place, And I see that often with my clients, and I know we'll talk about that later. And so for me, the biggest shift was having better plans that have safety nets and being patient about getting to where you're going to go.
So you basically have to trust the plan.
Yeah. So when you're not patient, you tend to take more risk and you don't even realize you're taking those financial risks because you're looking out there at everyone else and you're hearing other people's stories. And you're like, oh, they were able to do it, so I should be able to do it too.
Like, you want with the Joneses.
Yeah.
Pardon my play on words.
You get anxious when you see those things.
So take us through a scenario. It's funny. I had some guys over last night, and good guys. They were telling me a little bit about their background, and they both young guys. They were in their 20s, I believe, and they got degrees, went to school, and of course with that they got debt. And one of the guys, they were brothers. The youngest guy said he was actually almost finished with paying his college
That's great.
loan, but the other guy was like, "Yeah, I'm still paying." So I want you to kind of take us, because I want people to listen to this and really get some practical terms. I don't want to get so esoteric that we really get, because when we talk about money, I just want to say, when we talk about money, two things, especially for black folks and probably for most folks, but when you talk about money or taxes, and we get real quiet. We don't want to talk about it. We don't discuss, because it gets. I think there's a part of shame and embarrassment because we've been so behind the eight ball that we don't. So you got a guy or a girl, a woman, who comes out of school, maybe 20 something, mid 20s, 3, 4, 5, or what have you, or older. And they get out of school and they got this juicy degree, and they're ready to go out into the world. And like you said, they see all these different, they see Jay-Z and Beyonce and see all these people with money and stuff. And it's like, how do I start planning? Give us like an example of what a plan would be for a young person coming out of school. I want to do like two plans, a young person and maybe older folks like ourselves,
Yeah, we all know that if you get the degree, you earn more, right? So you're kind of caught.
Possibly.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
The stat that came out a couple of years ago that is only 11% of women in the United States make 6 figures a year, and only 20% of men make 6 figures a year.
Wow.
Right? And so the degree is, so to build wealth, let's say it's about
what
wealth
was that
building.
Percentage again?
11% of women and 20% of men. Now, I don't have the stats when it comes to, race and all. I've been looking for it, and there's really not anything out there yet. But we need the degrees to have the earning potential. The earning potential allows us with other financial strategies to be able to shift more and more money towards asset development. And that asset development is what allows us to create wealth, generational wealth, but also the wealth for us in order for us to have freedom. So that's one thing. So we want people to go to college.
Right. But if college isn't for everyone.
It isn't for everyone. Yeah. But if it's not for you, you should be focused on earning potential.
Right.
If it's not for you, right?
Right.
But outside of that, the main focus, especially for that young person.
Hang on one second. I'm sorry. You said earning potential.
Earning potential.
And explain that to our listeners.
Yeah. So you want to be able to know how to earn money, how to maximize your ability to earn more and more and more money. At a certain point, when you've developed a certain amount of assets development, or some other type of things, like I'll mention, especially for the younger person, you don't have to earn as much in order to continue to grow wealth. There's a tipping point here. But you have to be able to have that earning potential, because that earning potential, from what I do, allows you to shift more money into those security structures like I was mentioning, right? So putting more money towards savings, but also investment portfolios and things of that sort.
But if I'm a young person and I get out of school, or I'm just a young person, school or no school, I'm 25, 26, 27, and I'm trying to figure out my way, right? First of all, I'm trying to get a job. I'm trying to get a decent job that's going to pay me some. Let's say I'm going to throw out a figure. I'm making $45,000 a year, okay? Which is not a lot of money in today's world, right?
Yes.
And so, one, this is my living expenses. I get an apartment, or, if I live with my parents, they might want I want a car, the essentials, living, car, food, utilities, bills, and things like that. And there's not much left over. So how do I, I'm trying to create some real life scenarios.
Yeah,
here.
That's what the biggest piece for everyone to know, it doesn't matter if you're 25 or if you're 65, is that you have to have a gap in your month. You have to have a significant gap between what's coming in and what's going out. You need that gap. Without the gap, you can't put more money towards things that are going to create the safety and the security.
So when you say gap, you mean what? I really want to spell this out.
No, I get it. So when I talk about gap, I'm talking about what you have coming in and what you have going out towards committed expenses. So you're talking
about like your debt ratio.
Not debt per income ratio. I'm talking about all committed expenses. Your rent, whatever you have signed your name on that you have to pay out, electricity, heat, whatever it is, cable.
So let's give an overall figure to that. Let's say I'm making $45,000, and my overall payout my payout is, let's say, 40 realistically, 40. Let's say, I could divide it in months, but let's say altogether annually is 43. That means I got $1,500 left over after everything's up. That's a real scenario for some people.
It is a real scenario. So the way that you increase the gap is you either decrease your committed expenses, and I mean committed because there's some expenses that are not committed secure, like every single month you're going to be paying this. There's some that fluctuate,
Right.
So sometimes we're moving faster than our income allows us to move.
We got to have we got to live in a realistic world given what you're getting in. Like, you can't overspend.
Right. So you either decrease your committed expenses or increase your income, or a combination of both.
So that might mean no cable for a year, no going out and eating.
Well, I don't think people should nickel and dime their lives either, because money is a marathon. So it's more, for me, it would be things like, okay, usually it's your biggest expense that's the one that can be shifted.
Right.
So let's say you are making that type of money, but you're renting on your own. Why are you renting on your own? You should have a roommate. You see what I'm saying?
There it is, yeah.
There it is right there. And how much money are you going to save?
And you could save
instead of I don't have my clients clipping coupons, and I don't have my clients eating a sandwich that, from the bread you buy from the store that's only $1.99. Right. I don't do that because money is a marathon.
So if your rent is $1,500 and you get a roommate, now you've just chopped that in half.
Yeah, you could chop it in half, or you could, I've always made money. Since I was 18, I was making $1,000 a week when I was 18.
Yeah. So you like me. That money came my way.
Yeah, and that's why it's important to know how to make money.
Right.
Because you can change your structures in your future as much as you want. But you have to, these bigger major expenses we get into, we're so busy spending our emotional energy nickel and diming away instead of trying to change those bigger expenses. And those bigger expenses are the things that make a big difference to that bottom line. And that money could be shifted over to paying off debt. It could be shifted over to increase the gap towards certificates to increase your income, so on and so forth.
So there's a question that's looming, though, because there are a lot of people who say, well, I don't know how to make money. I would dare say that in the population of human beings, there's a smaller percentage of those people who know how to make money than there are who don't know how to make money. And so that, becomes to them a conundrum. They're like, well, how am I going to make money? And the ideas that come to their head are filled with caveats. Like, well, I could do this, but then I'd have to do that, or I could do this, or I have to do that. I could buy a 7-Eleven, but then I need the money to buy the 7-Eleven. You know what I'm saying? So it's like in their minds, they automatically go to what's not working or what's, in the way.
Right.
So how would you approach a person that says, well, how do I make money?
That's a great question.
If you are employed, you need to make yourself more valuable to your industry.
There we go.
So let's say you
That's
cut
why I
down.
brought this sister on. Good Lord.
Let's say you come down on your expenses. Let's say you did have that rent that was $1,500. Then you decide, let me go get a 2-bedroom, get a roommate, and now it's not $1,500, and it's not $750 either.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more
2,000.
like $2,000. So
But now-
but you still saved money, and you shift that additional money over to getting certifications and so on and so forth. I'll just give you an example. So I was in, sales and all of that in the finance industry, and then I decided to change, and I went from making 6 figures to $45,000 a year. In 2 years, I was back up to 6 figures.
How did that happen?
I invested in myself. I invested in getting the certifications I need. I invested in all of that.
Right.
And as a result, and I didn't increase my lifestyle before I invested in that. So then by the time I did that, I became more valuable to my industry. Your knowledge is incredibly valuable. And there's businesses you can start that don't cost an arm and a leg to start them either. So that's the other piece there. But if you don't create value, then you can't put a premium on your knowledge and your time. That's why education is important. And that's why it's also important to invest in yourself and other things you want to do that's not education related as far as investing towards your career.
So I call that, I call that thinking like a boss. Like that's what I try to tell my young folks. It's the difference between thinking like a worker and thinking like a boss.
Absolutely.
A boss thinks about the overall picture. They don't think like, oh, something, woe is me, I can't. No, let me think. I got to figure out a way to do this, and I got to make this happen.
Right.
I love what you said about increasing your value because, like for instance, I'm in healthcare, but another industry that I'm in is entertainment. And so, I would think that, and there are, so as a musician, and I'm a musician, typically any musician will say, well, yeah, I'm good. But in his mind, he or she said, but I could be better. Right. And so what I'm speaking to indirectly, though, is increasing your value. You say through education, and I'm not going to knock that. But then there are people who are pioneering. And so they're like, well, oh, my God, I'm referring to cars. There are guys who build cars out of scrap. And they build better freaking cars than what's on the road, right? And thus they make themselves more valuable. It's like putting in the effort, the time, the being, having the desire and determination. Do you say that those qualities count?
They do. And even if you are not someone, I'm not necessarily saying that it has to be traditional education, like institutionalized education. It needs to just be general education. Like when I was a consultant, I was a management consultant for years. I didn't go back and get my MBA. I thought about it, but I didn't do it. Everybody working under me had MBAs though. Wow. But I was getting this other education. I looked at my market. Yeah, I looked at my market and was like, what do they need? Let me fill the void. And the person who's building those cars, they might not even be the best ones at it, but they might be making more money at it because they saw a void and they learned how to market themselves. They knew how to make themselves valuable and put themselves in front of their ideal demographic. That's probably why they're making money.
So that's really interesting. Years ago, I was in a group with a group of guys, and we created this social entity. Now, because you said something about fulfilling a need. And inside of that group, I said, what's your vision? Now, the reason why I bring that up is because people, I believe, everyone has a vision when they're very young because they see life and they're like, that's missing and I want to put it in place. But then it gets washed out by the daily comings and goings.
Or naysayers, right?
Yeah, the naysayers, or just, life itself happens. Life happens, right? They grow up and they get an apartment and they got bills, and all of a sudden that vision
they're like, let me be realistic.
It's real.
Right,
whatever that's supposed to mean, right?
So in finding a need, do you help people like revisit or get in touch with that vision?
Yeah, because one of the things that ends up happening is the more someone's finances are in order, and I'm not a personal finance person like a lot of people confront, where, I'm not like stuffy in a suit and tie type of personality, but also I've been there and I've done it for myself. So my knowledge is not theoretical. So what ends up happening is they get their finances in order, and instead of having this tunnel vision, it's like the blinders come off and they start to see all these possibilities.
Right.
So it'll start with, Kendall, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to retire. And then I teach them everything they need to know about retirement and their retirement strategy. And then they end up calling me. Like, I just did an interview with a past client, and she's building a school in Ghana now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and she came to me with like, oh my God, this month is a problem, So it does happen, and I do help people get in touch with that. And sometimes it's hard to imagine because of what you said, like, I have to pay rent, I have to do this. So the more financial space you have in your month, that's why the month is comfortable, the more you can dream and the more you can create. So I look at money as a lifestyle tool, like a way to develop your ideal life. And the more knowledge you have, the more space you actually have in your time to be able to craft that life.
So I had a situation that happened to me. This is a real life situation. And I do all right for myself, but I looked at my mortgage this month and it went up by $300. So I got on the phone with my mortgage company. I'm like, what the hell? And, of course they told, Montgomery County taxes went up and your insurance went up. I said, God damn, by $300? And I just got it down by $250 a year or so ago because I took my PMI off. I was like, hey, my house got appraised for, plus $200,000. Take that PMI off. A lot of people don't know about that. And that's that insurance that they try to charge you for the first 7 years. The mortgage companies, it's a little dirty secret. Especially in this part of the world where we do pretty well with equity in our home. So now I'm faced with $300. I just got it down over the last year by $250, and now it goes up $300. What advice would you give me? Because now I got to find that 3x. I'm okay. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm okay. But I'm just saying, it takes away from my golfing, and it takes away. It could compete with my extra.
It competes with his lifestyle.
My lifestyle. I like.
You got to sell that Tesla.
I'm going to, no.
I'm never selling the Tesla.
I'm never selling it. In fact, I'm going to upgrade. That's necessary. To be who I am. To be the Christopher. But I think to myself, damn, 300. So, my first inclination is to get on the phone. I look up, first thing I Google is, taxes going up in Montgomery County, because I now want to talk to my council person, all the politicians. What the hell, why am I spending more? I got to get on the phone with my insurance company. Why are you doing? Because I want to know why, I want to talk to them. Because, so my first inclination is not to run from it, but to move towards it so I can figure out, problem solve.
Yep, lean in.
And that's what a lot of life is and finance is problem solving. And so, okay, this doesn't work, then I got to figure out this. I got to do this, make this. Of course, I might have to cut back, or I might possibly have to create more income for myself, right? Which I really don't have a problem with doing. But it does as a guy who's getting a little older in life, and I don't want to put more on my plate. I'm thinking about putting less on my plate. But what advice would you give someone
I mean, without seeing,
Like
of
me.
course, everything that's going on,
Sure,
it's a little
sure.
hard.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times that happens, there's like an increase, and it's because that money is going into escrow, and then there's like a back due amount of escrow that is due. You know what I mean? When they have like these inflations, you know, when it comes to like insurance or taxes or whatever. And it really depends on the person. So I would say like the people that I work with, you know, I would be looking at the full picture and we would decide, is this the fight that you want to fight? You
Right,
know what I'm saying?
right.
Is it something else that you have going out that you're really not reaping the benefits of anyway that you can, you know, sometimes we put and this is the emotional response to money.
Yep.
Sometimes we put so much energy fighting certain things when it comes to money that we're not actually like getting the most out of our money either. And that's why I don't run around worried about every $10. Now, if you have a different income, then this is a different conversation.
Right.
You know, that's another thing I try to tell
When you say
people.
different income, what do you mean?
Yeah, like if you're in a household and your household income is like $70,000 a year and you live in a very high, you know, expensive area and you have kids, you do have to look at like, you know, every $10 that comes and goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a lot of things eating away at your money.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
When you're a six-figure earner and stuff like that,
Right.
sometimes it's easier just to make more money than it is to like,
No doubt.
try to fight.
What?
And that keeps you in the abundance mindset. So some of this is
Ooh, I
about
love it.
about that. You know,
mindset.
if I'm trying to like worry about like this thing that increased this amount of money and it's increased on an appreciative asset too. You see what I'm saying? Or if I'm, you know, worrying about that, it's like I could be just putting myself in more scarcity mindset than abundant mindset. By constantly putting myself in abundant mindset, I'm able to grow more assets. I'm able to grow more wealth. I'm able to, you know what I mean? And you go through different phases in life. So it all depends on where this person is and what their ultimate financial goal is.
Yeah.
Like
That's something
that's
a lot
where
of
your
people,
attention needs to go.
That's something I bet a lot of people don't really think about. Their ultimate financial goal.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I think that especially if you're not, going back to what you said earlier, imaginative in a sense of how to make money, then you're kind of like always at the mercy of your boss.
Yes.
Right? So then, you know, it's like if you're not of that mindset of making or generating something, but just reporting up to work and getting a paycheck,
Right.
then, you know, how do you think about a financial goal? How can you even, you know, it's so remote to think. It's like a fantasy.
I mean, there's a lot of different financial goals too, and a lot of times the only financial goal we think about is earning.
You know, it's I'm going to say something real quick, and I want you to get back to that. It's like, because what you just said, like there's different financial goals, right? People are unaware of the different financial goals. Just like a lot of kids, like when I was in college or maybe even before then, especially if you were African American, you know, you went to college for either political science or journalism or lawyer or doctor or engineer. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then you got these kids out here now, most of them non-African American, who are like, oh, I'm going to college for, I don't know, international policy or even health policy, or it's like there's all these options now, all these different options.
A lot of options, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of options that, you know, and that, oh my God, I hate to say it, but those options become more plentiful in the view of those who are not African American than there are. And I would dare group in the Latino community with us there, you know. So it's like, you know, how do these options become publicized or become common knowledge?
Yeah. I mean, the real problem is exposure, you know. So like whatever our reality is made up of what we are consistently exposed to, right? Like, so if I have a friend, I love talking about her. She's in Canada, and she's been an entrepreneur her whole life. She's in her 40s. There's never been a time where she's worked for someone else. And when I talk to her about it, both of her parents were entrepreneurs. So that's all she knew. It was normal. It was reality.
Wow.
It didn't seem risky. It didn't seem any of that because she grew up in it,
Right.
you know? So what you're talking about is exposure. And if I do know about a lot of different financial goals because I have the exposure to it. Like, so I always tell people you have to figure out what your financial goals are you don't want to forget what you need to. You know, like some people drive towards a financial goal, don't ever think about retirement, and then it catches up with them. Like, you don't want that. But for me, my goal was to reach financial freedom, you know, and financial freedom is your ability to afford your lifestyle without working for anyone. And so even though I was a consultant and making great money and all, everything I was doing was gearing me towards that. It wasn't gearing me to stay a consultant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know. I mean, I'm the same way. I grew up the same way. I mean, yeah, I worked for a few people, but it was only to get knowledge about to gain more knowledge about what I wanted to do. I mean, I've been in production most of my life, and I've worked for myself. And you know, my parents they did have an entrepreneurial spirit, but they had a cleaning company and stuff like that. But it was really, also I would add with exposure is motivation. Like, what are you motivated? For me, I like nice things, right? I like going places and doing things. So I created a certain standard for myself at an early age. Like, you know, one of my brothers always said, "Man, you always have nice places and things." It's like, well, that was in my head. I put that in my head. Literally, you know, when I got out of high school, I was like, you know, at 19, you know, I was, back in the day, those who know, I was on the 10th floor of Marbury Plaza, and I had a nice apartment, and I had 2 jobs, and I worked part-time at Bridges. You know, it was like, my motivation was to do things. It wasn't about you know, I didn't even have the mindset I'm not going to have. Of course I'm going to have that. Of course I'm going to get that suit.
It's reality.
I want that. Yeah, it's my created for myself.
What we're exposed to is our reality, you know, like my dad is a Fulbright scholar, and my mom, you all already heard about her, and he's not an entrepreneur, but he started a lot of nonprofits. It's just normal for me. Like, I saw him sitting in our living room starting nonprofits and getting calls from African countries all through the night about the things that he was doing. That's normal to me. Yeah. You know, but for some people it's not normal. So some of it is the exposure to normalize some of these things when it does come to money and these alternative financial goals. Because the one that you hear about the most is, I want to be a multi-millionaire and I don't have this big old this and this big old that.
Right.
But there's other financial goals too. Like, you know, it was my goal to get to the point of financial freedom, and I got there at 34 or something like that. And it was my goal to be able to make 6 figures a year and work like 15 hours a week, and I got there at that same age. Yeah. You know, and so some of it is motivation, but you don't get what you want. You don't get it without sacrifice. You don't get it without paying a fee. Like, you got to pay for it some kind of way, right?
Well, what I'm hearing the both of you say is that a financial goal starts with, what does it look like to reach that goal? Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, you asked the person what's their financial goal, and I wondered, is the first thought of theirs is, well, I don't know what that looks like, because they're thinking about figures as opposed to life.
Usually that is the case. Usually they are, you know, they're like, I would love to, you know, make $250,000 a year, or I would love to be able to retire, and this is how much I see in the account, and not realizing that those figures don't necessarily translate to what they want in life. And money, like I said, is a lifestyle tool. So by the time I left to do my business full time, like, all of my bills only fit into 20-something% of my take-home pay from my consulting job. So I didn't have to make that type of money in order to leave. So it's not like just because you have a whole bunch of money that means that you're going to have the life you want to live. A lot of times it's actually the opposite, because you don't have time affluence.
Yeah, that's interesting you should say that. I remember how, as I was one of the practices that I work with, I met someone who, there are a couple of people in my life who made less money than me, but somehow they were able to accomplish so much more. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? You know, it's like they traveled, and they and they were able to buy the cars that they wanted, and
maybe a different lifestyle or something.
Possibly,
it's the way they manage the money that they made.
How they manage the money. It's all. I mean, for me, I lost my train of thought, but I remember the first time I made six figures, right? And it wasn't like I was like, I want to make six figures. And the first time I bought a house at 32, and it was like, oh, damn, I'm making some money. I can, and it was really, I was motivated. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. To your point that you made, during that same time, I had a business going on. I had employees, and I was planning their insurance plan and all that. And I found I thought I wanted to be the big business owner with the brick and mortar and all that. I realized, whoa, this is a lot of responsibility. I'm stressed out. They seem to all be happy. I come in, I feel like I'm busting my ass for them. I felt like a slave to this thing. And all I wanted to do is have a recording studio and do music and be creative. But I got so caught up in just running the business that I had to reset. I closed down the business and worked out of my home and felt a lot better. Like, I don't need this, because it was so much about a look. Like, I got this business and look at me, I'm the big man with the business and all that. And so people today go, Chris, why don't you get open up get a building? I'm like, no, I don't want that ever again. I'm fine. I'm fine being, a one-man operation. And that's what works for me, and managing what I have. I need to manage. This is a certain lifestyle I want to live, and could I make more money? Yeah, possibly, but I'm good. Let me find a nice place that works for me and sustain that. And also that I can also, have a decent retirement.
Yeah,
and that's so interesting, because I had a business that I actually ran away from that. I mean, I had an opportunity to expand.
Your car business?
Yeah, exactly. I had an opportunity to expand. I had an opportunity, to hire people and all that stuff. And what I lost sight of the vision. Yeah. What I was stricken with immediately was, oh shit, I'm making less money up front because I'm having to pay them.
Right.
But I knew in the back of my head that I eventually was going to duplicate myself, but it just did. I was impatient.
Yeah.
That's the patience.
That's the patience.
I was impatient, because it could have gotten to the point where, I trained the guy. Okay, he's good. Okay, you go do that. I'm going to go do this. And then, I make a little bit off of what he made, but it's a little bit more than what I'm making, because I'm not having to really work for that.
Patience.
I know.
It gets you every time. And this is coming from someone who tells other people, you need to be patient. And I'm incredibly impatient.
Right.
I'm very patient with other people.
Sure.
But with myself and my goals, I'm trying to run. So whenever I feel myself running, I'm like, wait. Like, pull back, because that's when you put yourself at higher risk, financial risk, and more financial stress.
And all of
that.
And make bad decisions.
Yeah.
You make bad decisions. I always tell people, don't make decisions when you're desperate. You make bad decisions. It's like somebody, being at the crap table or card table at the casino, and they're losing money, and they're trying. Get up.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna make a bad decision. Just chill. Take a breather for a second. Reset. Think about what you're doing. Get back. Put your eye back on the sparrow of what you really want. Sometimes you have to sit down and literally write it on paper. Like, wait a minute, what I really wanted. That's what happened to me. I was like, what I really want is this.
Yeah.
But I'm actually doing this. So patience, being patient.
And that's how I ended up working with entrepreneurs, because it didn't start that way. I was just working with people in their personal finances, and then more and more entrepreneurs became attracted to me. And they were like, wait a minute, you're making 6 figures profit and you're working 15 hours a week. Can you show me how to do that? Because I am exhausted. I've had my business for 15 years.
That's definitely
we bring in, I've worked with businesses that bring in $1.5 million a year, several, and they're like, I don't want this business anymore. I am stressed out. I thought this is what I wanted, and now I'm stuck.
It looks great on paper, but but in
so
real
they
life,
come to me, they're
sucks.
like, I'm willing to make less revenue.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you worked with for lack of a better word, startups? People before they get to that point?
Yes, a lot of people. Over time in your business, I'm sure you experienced this, Chris, and you have too. It's like your ideal client base tends to evolve,
Sure.
And so people will come to me for personal finance, and then that's cleared up. And they're like, and what I really want is a business. Can you show me how to do that? But I do tell everyone, I specialize in lifestyle business. So if you have a growth idea for a growth model business, or like the startup is which is more like these businesses that grow really quick and get a lot of investment in it, I'm not the one for you. And I'll tell them they should go somewhere else because I like lifestyle business.
What's a lifestyle business?
So a lifestyle business is one that's created purely to fit your ideal lifestyle. The business is designed for you. It's not like this separate entity outside of you.
Yeah, so that's me.
Yeah, that's what you have, Chris.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle business.
Yeah, and that's what I think most people imagine, but then it gets carried away. But yeah, that's what it is. So you're very much focused on the profit margin, on the team development, all of these things, so that it's not so much pressure. Like I have full-time staff, but I have more than one business too, and I'm still not working a lot. But my profit margin on the coaching business alone is like 85%. So like I don't have to work as much, and I'm making the same amount as my entrepreneurs that come to me bringing in $700K in revenue a year. So that's a lifestyle business. It's purely designed to fit your ideal lifestyle. The profit margin fits your ideal lifestyle, and the workflow and all of that fits your ideal lifestyle.
This is great. We could talk about this all day. So before we, and I know you got things to do. Before we come to a close, is there one bit of advice that you could give someone who is starting a business? It's something that they're very passionate about. They don't. This is what makes them tick. But their business is not quite there yet. Like they can't quite get the revenue, earn the revenue that they want. But they're not willing to give up. Like this is it. This is their business. Is there anything that you could tell them that they might want to try on to?
One piece of advice.
Okay.
I have like a million.
I love it.
But I'm going to just say one thing. You need to master client acquisition. I needed to learn. Lean
talk
in
about that. Lean in on that. Talk about that.
I had to lean into the mic because that's how important it is.
Master client acquisition.
A lot of entrepreneurs, and this is coming
money.
From
close the deal.
Yeah, this is coming from someone who was a business consultant for years, and someone who was a sales consultant for years, and all of that. Almost every single problem you have as an entrepreneur is boiled down to the fact that you have not mastered client acquisition, right?
Preach.
So a lot of times you see entrepreneurs, they're so focused on branding and they're focused on all this and that, and they're being told that, like that's the messaging out there, but that's the messaging out there for people whose businesses are bigger, right? And to get to that 6 figures or that multi-6 figures, you never have to do any branding at all, actually.
I did it. I don't do
any
any branding.
It's I'm like, 5 years
But you know what I ask my clients every time I talk to them? What's your budget?
Yeah.
Like I want to qualify you.
Yeah. You have to be able to master demand.
Yeah.
You have to be able to master demand for what you offer. If you can master demand for what you offer, you generate revenue. Right. And as a part of generating revenue, you could level up your business.
Right.
So people are putting their attention on the wrong thing. Like 80-90% of your attention and if you're going to spend money and all that should be on educating yourself, not outsourcing it. Educating yourself on client acquisition. At that point, you can hire full-time people.
Right.
You can build a whole team. You could put money towards branding. You can evolve your business.
Because you got some money coming in.
Master that. If you don't master that, you will always be putting yourself at financial risk.
Well, I need to be sure and get your card.
So
seriously, because I'm in a band and I'm starting another band, and that's just 2 or 3 things that I'm involved with. Even with our podcast, I mean, this would be.
How do you leverage to make money?
Yeah,
I mean that's
client acquisition. It's like market share.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, that's I love all that talk, but for me, it's like, how do I close it? What does this? I want to draw a line to. what I'm doing and the dollar sign.
Yes.
That's how I come from the streets, yo. I'm a hustler. I need that money.
Let me tell you, when you think like that, you work less.
Right.
So,
I need that money.
Because you're not filling your time up with a bunch of fluff. Like, there's
right,
so much
a bunch of fluff.
No,
I'm like, I don't need that.
You don't. That's why I don't work a lot.
Yeah. See, you and I'm the same way. People are like, how you just be chilling? Because when I do work, I'm closing a deal. I need that money.
Yeah, there's not a bunch of all this
Yeah.
to-do list stuff. We work with 80 to 100 people a year, and I'm still working 15 hours a week.
I love it. So how can people, before we close it, how can people find you? Give the name of your business again. Because people need to know.
Sure. So the business is called Jones Coaching Group.
Okay.
And our website is jonescoachinggroup.com. You can go there. All my consultations are free. That way I know it's a good fit.
Yep.
I don't like taking people when I don't know if it's going to be a good fit for both of us.
That's called confidence. She knows what she's doing.
And on there we do have a podcast, and a lot of it
that's
is
right. Your
designed
podcast.
to motivate
podcast.
people, motivate clients, tell past stories, and me being very transparent about my money, my finances. I like to be open about it. And that podcast is called The Money Itch.
The Money Itch. And that's
everywhere.
Wherever you can find your podcast.
Yeah.
Spotify.
Cool.
Everywhere, but it's also on the website, so a lot of people like to just
What's the website?
jonescoachinggroup.com.
I love it. So let me tell you, before we leave, I'll tell you and why I invited you here. We met each other, was it this year or last year?
This year, March.
It was in March. That's right, because Joya.
Have a good memory.
Joya Jefferson Nuri, who also has her podcast, Unshackled. She rocks it out. And she had because she's a Pisces like me, and she had a party at a restaurant that we loved, and I still love it. Joya. That's another conversation. But we met at a party, at a birthday party, and I think we were sitting beside each other. And she mentioned what she did, and her approach. I quite frankly, I'll be honest, I never heard, especially, and I got to say this, a woman speak like the way I speak about money. It's like, yo, I'm getting money out here. It's about, and here's what you need to do in confidence. Because that's anybody who knows me, I rock and roll. I don't, this is, I've bought properties, I've sold properties, blah, 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 blah. And I taught myself. I didn't, again, I come from the streets. I'm that hustler dude from the streets that was like, yo, I got to make this happen. It's all, and so I think, I tell my guys out there, Brandon and Ahmad, who are in the control room, I tell these cats, listen, think like a boss, and that means taking responsibility, being responsible. Like, yo, it all begins and ends with me. From everything I do. If I pick up something, like I gotta put that back because it reflects me. It reflects me. So I'm just happy that you joined us and graced us with your knowledge and understanding about finance, because I know, and I'll say this, from my black folks in the community, we have this thing about money. We don't want to talk about money unless we balling, and sometimes we're not. It takes time and patience to get to that point where you're balling, and sometimes you there's a little bit of sacrifice that goes with it. But you can get there, and it can be a real thing, and you can have really what you want. I have that attitude that I can get what I want. Yep. I didn't get the memo that I can do what I want. What are you talking about? So I'm just glad. I'm glad that you're here.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah. It was a fun conversation. Of course, I could talk about this all day.
I know.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
So we're probably going to invite you back in the springtime.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And then, it's funny, the other thing, Omar, because we said we would have one here because this is what I want to touch on real quick, is that there's no secret. This is during the holidays, and this will air either, before or after the holidays, and people go through that stress with money during the holidays. And, it's like, I'm trying to, please a lot of people, buy these presents and do all this stuff. And you got to stick to your guns. I mean, that's nice to get presents and do all that stuff, but you got to make sure that you got the plan still in place.
Yes, never let go of the plan. Sometimes it slows down.
Right.
But you always touch it every month. Touch your plan every single month.
Wow. I love it. I love it. So thank you, lucky listeners.
Yeah, I hope you lucky listeners got something out of this.
Yeah, thank you for joining us once again for not your common conversations.
Exactly. I need a cue. You need to point at me.
All right. I think we got it in.
All right, guys.
All right.
Great.
Peace out.
Have a great life.